is true. Something in my eye. Whole world's falling apart. Happy Monday, everybody. So, like anyone who ever bought a book by Brian Kilmeade, we understand buyer's remorse. Yeah. And these days, nobody gets that better than your average Democrat. As Joe Biden continues his worldwide confusion tour, more and more voters have taken to steaming that dump Trump sticker off their Priuses. In a brand new poll, Donald Trump now leads Joe Biden in 5 of 6 swing states that Trump lost in 2020. Oh, look at that. I haven't seen so many people regret a decision since CNN gave $9 billion to Chris Wallace. Apparently, many Dems have started to notice what none of us were supposed to, that things were far better and safer under Donald Trump than Joe Biden. You remember those days when your car wasn't stolen and your son wasn't pregnant? True, like watching The View talk about their weight loss. The disparity between what you're told is true and the evidence of our own eyes has become impossible to ignore. And now even liberal thought leaders are starting to sound about as coherent as the voices in Kamala's head after 3 hours of vaping window cleaner. Recently on the podcast Trigonometry, philosopher Sam Harris, who's an expert at being simultaneously wrong and sanctimonious, had this to say about Trump.
I mean, you think of all the things we didn't get done and will not get done for every moment we spend dealing with the divisiveness of Trumpism and the counter-reaction from the left. I mean, it's just a massive opportunity cost. So no, I think there's nothing good. Even if you can find some local instance where Trump was right about something and the Democrats were wrong. I mean, he's totally right about the southern border.
So like opening that Igloo cooler with your Tinder date's head in it. Let's unpack that. Harris says that Israel got attacked because America took its eye off the ball. Trump was so awful a person that half the country just couldn't entertain his ideas. It's the intellectual equivalent of putting your hands over your ears and making siren noises. Now, of course, this ignores the fact that there was another half of the country that didn't have its hands over its ears and could hear President Trump. But we know that half doesn't exist for guys like Harris. They're just the people who drive his Uber and bring his coffee order, you know, like Jimmy Fallon does for me. And it also shows how insane Trump derangement syndrome was. What Harris is saying is that, yes, the world was safer under Trump, but I'd rather have World War III than mean tweets. At least that gets rid of my personal angst. Harris then admits that one of the left's favorite unsupported charges against Trump, his supposed racism, was used to discredit even the ideas that they agreed with.
There's absolutely no defense of having an indefensible border. We should know who's coming into the country. Build the wall. I mean, yes, if the wall is the best way to secure that border, then build that wall, right? So Trump's right about that, but he's such an awful human being, and his effect on our politics is so toxic that we can't even, that half of our society has to treat that completely sane project as a form of racism because they're reacting to the golem of Trump.
Now, only an intellectual could sound so dumb. We need a wall, and we know it, but let's call Trump a racist to make sure we don't get it. He's saying he was wrong because he's biased, but that's good. Congratulations, you got tenure. Meanwhile, the rest of us knew Trump wasn't racist. I mean, how could someone who hates people of color spend 40 grand a year on bronzing cream? When you listen to Harris, it's like asking the cop who he voted for before he pulls you from that burning car. Here's the point. Even after voting Trump out of office, liberals are still obsessed with him. The panic never stopped. If I were a therapist, I would treat Democrats this way. Please show me on this doll where Trump hurt you. They would all point to their heads. Talk about missed opportunity costs. The Biden administration, the legacy media, and even our great philosophers just can't quit you, Donald. So it's not Trump at all, it's their psyche, which means, to me, if you like Trump's policies but hated the constant presence of Trump, you should still vote Trump anyway, because whether he wins or not, the obsession will still always be there. So you have a choice, Trump obsession and Biden politics, or Trump obsession and Trump policies. See, like Joe Biden, it's a no-brainer. Fact is, it's Biden who continues to take his squinty eyes off the ball. Too bad that ball doesn't have blonde hair and the fragrance of baby shampoo. That would keep his attention. But do you think the Hamas attack would have happened if we weren't focusing on Ukraine's border 24/7, if we weren't consumed by the White House embrace of identity politics, if we weren't fearful over rampant crime in our cities, if we had to worry about being canceled or worse, being jailed over beliefs? Instead, we got all of that, plus Trump derangement, but without the Trump policy. So we get the whining and paranoia without the hard line on Islamic radicalism, the relationship with Israel, and the iron fist on immigration. Look, if we're going to have to hear all this belly aching, can we at least feel safe while doing it? Now, it's nice that Sam Harris was willing to say the left's quiet part out loud, but that doesn't change the fact that what he admits the Dems have been doing is entirely dishonest and has made this country much less safe. Nobody is afraid of us anymore. Our president has become a punchline and our country a punching bag. If the world was Jada Pinkett, we'd be Will Smith. But voters are waking up as wars break out everywhere. They're suddenly missing the president whose terribly mean demeanor actually kept the world in line. But there's another strange thing happening. Even when Trump's out of power, the fear of him ascending is already changing behavior. Dems realize they can't fight two wars. They can't let violent felons roam free. They can't let our border collapse. It seems the only thing that gets Dems to act like adults is the fear that they will lose to that childish Trump. In a way, they're like a guy who traded in his big muscle car for a little electric Mini Cooper. But suddenly the guy's missing all that muscle, all that power, the roar of that V8 engine. Sure, it was noisy and sometimes it was annoying, and yeah, it was orange. But you know what? Every other car on the road gets the hell out of its way, and now it's time maybe Biden do the same. Let's welcome tonight's guest. She's never been asked to pick up the pace. Host of the Fox True Crime podcast, Emily Campagno. He's the only doctor I call for prostate exams. Host of Ask Dr. Drew, Dr. Drew Pinsky. Palestinians and Israelis have agreed on one thing. They hate his jokes. Writer and comedian Joe DeVito. And finally, her wit so dry it causes brush fires. New York Times bestselling author and Fox News contributor, Kat Tiff. You know, Emily, there's this belief that when you get Trump derangement syndrome. But if you just replace him with any Republican, it's going to be insert that name, derangement syndrome. Whether it's DeSantis or whoever, it's going to be the same thing. Do you agree? Say yes and we'll move on.
Yes. And for sure, that hatred is transferable, but he holds that unique position where he will always be the pinnacle to the left. You said in the beginning in the intro how in those 5 of the 6 swing states, he is absolutely demolishing Biden in the polls. And I just think it bears worth underscoring that he's leading in the economy by 22 points in those states and others. Americans absolutely trust him more than anything with their most precious commodity right now, which is providing for their families. And yet think about what else the New York Times uncovered today. They said they found out because of a poll that in those 6 swing states, that 6% of voters, if he was convicted, would switch their votes to Biden. And that 6% is enough to potentially sway the election. And they were crowing about it. Their headline read, Trump indictments haven't sunk his campaign, but a conviction might. And when you put that against the landscape of Letitia James crowing during her campaign about he's a con man and she's going to get him, you know, this is someone who employs over 30,000 people. This is someone who has been paying taxes and providing for this city and this state in so many arenas, and yet all they want to do is kill the beast. They are hinging their hat on any conviction, come hell or high water, because now they know, as one voter said, I can't elect a criminal leader. So they're going to do whatever they can and whatever it takes to make sure he has that tag next to his name, because apparently preserving and protecting America isn't enough. And quick final point, because Sam Harris, to bring up the golem, that's a Jewish sort of mythological monster. And the audacity to bring that up now as Hamas and Islamic Jihad and so many have pledged the eradication of Jewish people and their culture under this administration's watch. And because of this administration's leniency and Iran enablement, to me, is so rich. The left needs to get it together, but take it as a warning. I'm afraid they really are going to do everything they can to convict him.
Emily, that wasn't a quick point.
Sorry.
It is true, though, that in some issues, Biden is down to single digits. Do you know what that single digit is? Anyway, sorry, editors. Dr. Drew, okay. I mean, it's been going on for 3 years since he left office, and it just gets worse.
Yeah.
Should is it called the DMS?
DSM-5.
DSM-5 have Trump derangement as a medical disorder?
Well, we're getting close, I think. It's certainly hysteria, right? I mean, the hysteria, there ain't no derangement like Trump derangement. You know, you're talking about it being transferable. I don't think anyone can create it the way he does. And I feel as though the hysteria around COVID, the hysteria around many things, the border, the kids in cages, all this hysteria is in fact diagnosable, but we've been swept up by it in some very strange way. The other thing, I'm a Sam Harris fan, I've been for years, but it's so interesting watching his cognitive dissonance take hold. It's almost like steam's coming out of his ears. And he says something very specific. He says, you know, southern border, he was correct. I just don't like him.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, I don't like him is not a way to judge a presidential candidate. Abraham Lincoln was not liked.
No.
During his lifetime, he was he was not liked by almost anyone.
Ask Joe, because they used to talk.
Joe DeVito.
No, Biden.
Oh, Biden.
Get with the program.
Sorry. Got to keep up with you. But it's just so interesting to me that we're using like high school or junior high school. I don't like him as our criteria.
Yeah, it's the same criteria, Joe, that you would have for like your lawyer or your agent.
Yeah.
You want to have somebody who defends you the best way. It doesn't matter if they're an a-hole.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point of having a weak, good-tempered schmuck?
Yeah.
You can't get the job done. I think what drives them nuts the most is that no matter what they throw at Trump, it's incredible. He looks better now than he did when he became president.
Yeah.
That never happens with presidents. They all come out looking like mummies.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny the way he breaks people's brains. To me, the best was Elizabeth Warren, how he kept pushing her, and she came out with a DNA test that said she was 1/1000th, and she was like, you see? You see?
It was all for Donald.
And then when they said, what do you think? He said, who cares? So he got her good. Yeah, I think if Trump is amazing, and I'm watching him in the courtroom, and whatever they're throwing at him, first of all, the sketch artist made him look like Edvard Munch's The Scream.
Yeah.
Where he's like this. But then you see in Trump's world, you look at his lawyer, and it's like, of course he has a smoking hot lawyer. That's the way Trump rolls.
Yeah.
So if they send him to jail, I think we need to switch the way we elect presidents. I think we need to do something like jury duty, where you get something in the mail and you're just a random person's like, oh, I gotta do this for 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's not worth it anymore, Kat. Hello, how are you?
I'm great.
Excellent. You look like one of the world's most successful real estate agents.
I am.
Kat, what do you think about this?
First of all, excellent question. That's why you're sitting over there. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of surprising to see him say it. I'm just overwhelmed, honestly, with a sense of dread.
Yeah.
Just like we're going to have to do all this again. It's going to be exactly the same. It's going to be, everybody's going to say, the history of the country hinges on this election, which, I don't know, man. Now that we see that we have a president that doesn't really know what's going on, and I wouldn't say things are great.
Yeah.
Things are pretty bad, but we're still a country, so I don't think you can say that anymore.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of the same stuff, and it's the two same people, and I think that it's really rare to see somebody actually be honest about, listen, I just don't like the guy.
Yeah.
It's usually a lot more moral, emotional language gets involved, but then a lot of people actually do believe it.
Yeah.
And they get genuinely upset. And then we make decisions based on that. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to vote for either one of them. So.
Did you see Rob Reiner's tweet today where he said that the democracy hinges on no third party? Yes. Really? You can't have democracy at third party and Trump being convicted.
Yeah, there you go. They can't win. They can't win fairly, so they got to throw the guy in jail.
I think if Trump's opinions were the exact opposite, those people would have gone for the exact opposite.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
If he had said wear masks and come on in Mexico, The View and Rob Reiner would be ripping masks off people's faces and stacking them up at the southern
Forget
border.
the vaccine. We're on California. We weren't going to touch that vaccine. That is Trump's vaccine. Then all of a sudden, everyone has to have the vaccine.
All right. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.